Johnny Mnemonic begins with a very striking visual representation of the internet. Philistines will get their first laugh when we're told it's the year 2021. Interestingly, there's nothing really inherently dated about this portrayal. It's just an artist's tangible rendering of something abstract. What's dated about it, sad as it is to say, is that the internet in Johnny Mnemonic is exciting, dynamic, bustling, and grand. We don't think about the internet in that way anymore. If anything, for the past decade, the internet has devolved from an intricate web of information into about 10 to 15 hubs that we access through apps which curate the internet for us. To call the internet a web anymore seems kind of dated because the internet now is more like a hallway with doors we walk in and out of. No one would think of themselves as engaging with cyberspace when they are shopping on Temu, ordering Chipotle on DoorDash, or watching with rapt attention as Terry fails to back up. Because engaging with cyberspace sounds like something that Johnny Mnemonic would do, like an activity that requires plugging in or wearing a cool headset. We're all familiar with the term, we all remember it, it just doesn't mean much anymore. Author William Gibson coined the term cyberspace in his short story Burning Chrome in the pages of Omni magazine in 1981, followed quickly by the short story Johnny Mnemonic. 3 years later, he'd publish his highly influential novel Neuromancer, which birthed the genre of cyberpunk. If you wanted to be redundant, you might say cyberpunk is a genre that made a lot of predictions, but I think it's better understood as a project to extrapolate the pace of emerging technological phenomena in the 70s and 80s. There looked to be quite a future on the horizon, with the emergence of the internet and personal computing. But unlike what we might now call retrofuturism, which was a prediction of an elegant 1960s future that never came, a bright and inspiring vision of endless consumer product innovations and space colonizations, cyberpunk, instead, emerged as a genre that predicted a less than stellar future, one in which specialized tech operators might thrive, but wherein everyone else lives in squalid, cramped conditions as second-class laborers. Cities are now interchangeable, overrun with globalization, wiping out any kind of regional culture, and all representative government has been supplanted and neutered by corporate power. This, I think, describes more or less the worlds of some of the most famous cyberpunk media, the film Blade Runner, or Neil Stephenson's anarcho-capitalist metaverse novel Snow Crash. There are, of course, many nascent examples that came out of England, especially in the late 70s, like J.G. Ballard's High Rise, or the stories of Judge Dredd and his Mega City 1 in the pages of 2000 AD magazine. But Gibson's early work, his Sprawl trilogy, which includes 3 novels and 3 short stories, Johnny Mnemonic being one, were really foundational to what we think of as cyberpunk today. Gibson was the first to envision a world inside the computer, inside interlinked databases that would communicate, and he showed us a representation, a crude, exciting, rapid-fire, and sometimes hallucinatory vision of how humans might interface with it. In his stories, the internet and the world of the computer data becomes an alternate path, a parallel society by which the omnipresent, omnipotent corporate government might be resisted. It also becomes a way by which one loses themselves and their tether to humanity and reality. So let's take a look at the film Johnny Mnemonic from 1995, which, while being a lesser entry in the canon of cyberpunk films, generally not well thought of or fondly remembered, does share many qualities with contemporaries in the canon, and was produced with significant collaboration between director Robert Longo and William Gibson, who ended up writing the script. This is as close as we've gotten so far to a visual representation of Gibson's Sprawl universe on screen. I'd like to look at Johnny Mnemonic and its decade-long journey through Hollywood through the lens not of its predictive power, but through the culture in which it was created. What can we learn about that era? The one that birthed and sustained cyberpunk. What about this time and place would lead an author like Gibson and many more to extrapolate that the world of Johnny Mnemonic would be the future? Johnny lays sprawled in bed amongst luxurious silk sheets. A woman from the night before gets dressed and walks out of the room. The luxuries of champagne and fine food adorning the room have lost their luster in the cold light of day, and we can tell that Johnny is depressed. His slimy boss Ralphie, played by Udo Kier, comes over the television comm system to offer Johnny his next job. Oh, how we long to have this kind of cool video communication technology, and how awesome everyone looked using it in the movies. Now that we actually do have it over Zoom or Skype, we all hate it. No one looks cool in their webcam, and as a matter of fact, people are often more prone to humiliate themselves on it or conspire to evade it entirely. We infer from their conversation and the ensuing action The Johnny is special. He's some kind of hired gun, like an assassin or a mercenary. The way he lives, we assume, is paycheck to paycheck, from one score to the next. A big blowout of finery and women, and then back to work. En route to his next assignment, he weaves through crowds of protesters in Beijing, indifferent to their cause or their suffering. He's able one minute to stride through the mayhem without causing suspicion or ire from the crowd, then easily gain access to a high-end hotel. He's like many private eye noir characters before him, able to pass in various class strata while belonging to neither, and accepted somewhat in both. In the parlance of this future world, Johnny is a courier, a walking piece of wetware, a human thumb drive, and data is stored in his brain. When something is too hot to transmit through the web, Johnny delivers it personally, and he's arrived at his next job. The customers, a fidgety coterie of scientists who have some damning intel on Pharmacon, a massive pharmaceutical conglomerate. Johnny obliges them and suffers through the arduous ordeal of the upload. Why Johnny needs to pump data directly into his brain was maligned as a stupid plot hole by many. Why not just give him a physical hard drive to transport? But I mean, the whole data in your brain thing is quite the hook. It's a very cool concept. And if you were to try to intercept Johnny, you couldn't really kill him. You'd have to capture him alive and force the info out of him, which would not be as easy as simply stealing a hard drive. And before you know it, the bad guys are on Johnny's tail. Not just any bad guys, though. The Yakuza. And they blast their way through the unfortunate renegade scientists as Johnny makes his escape. In addition to being a mark for the Japanese crime syndicate, Johnny has taken on too much data. It's overloading his system and poisoning his body, and if he doesn't dump it fast, he'll die. Obviously, we don't have wetware couriers in the 21st century. We're not uploading things into our brains, literally, yet, but we are in a way suffering the same symptoms as Johnny. Sensory overload. Overload via our phones, watches, augmented reality glasses, etc. The effects of these are perhaps more pernicious, less obviously lethal, as Johnny's data dump, but slowly, they're eating away at our attention, our imagination, and even the way we interact with our own memories. Johnny had memories once, and they flash before his eyes every so often, but he had them removed. He erased some of the ideas and thoughts that made him who he was to make room for more data and junk to carry around. Sometimes I feel like we're farming out our memories, our identities, to these little bricks that we carry around in our pockets.
You can't remember a thing.
Maybe there's some residual traces. Every now and then there's something, but I can never hold on to it.
That's a seriously weird-ass thing to do.
Yeah, well, maybe I didn't lose anything I wanted to keep. I needed the space for the job.
Now the only thing Johnny knows is immediacy, what he needs right now, what will give him pleasure right now, and he's only out for number one. Johnny, in a sense, lives above the fray, harnessing the technological burden of the 21st century and monetizing it. But many aren't so lucky. Johnny encounters Jane, played by Dina Meyer, a stand-in for the original character in the short story, Molly Millions, who went on to become a lead character in Neuromancer and a fan favorite. Jane has taken on a disfiguring burden to serve her career as an assassin, only to find herself obsolete.
Sheep's creed implants.
You damaged goods, bitch. Spider-Man jacked you up all right.
Jacked her up so tight she shakes.
And naturally, as a discarded mutant of modernity, she takes to Johnny and his plight. During their escape from the Yakuza and journey into the underworld, they encounter a charitable mission led by the renegade hacker Spider, played by Henry Rollins, who is terrible in the film, but whose real-life performance of Against the Manness in his band Black Flag helps sell his revolutionary nature.
It's not my work that got her this way. My work is clean. Besides, you don't get this shit from amp jobs. That's just a myth.
So what does cause it?
What causes it? The world causes it. This causes it. This causes it. This causes it. Information overload. All the electronics around you poisoning the airwaves. Technological fucking civilization. But we still have all this shit because we can't live without it.
The same goes for Fuck the Police rapper Ice-T as leader of the anti-corporate power Low-Tex. Spider aids the squalid masses who suffer from nerve attenuation syndrome, a disease brought on by overexposure to technology. It's all rather vague, but not too dissimilar from the patients in, say, Brian Oblivion's cathode ray mission, who suffer from lack of access to television signals in Cronenberg's Videodrome. And you can check out my review for that movie on my channel as well. The through line of the message is unmistakable, kind of beats you over the head. Technology is by and large bad, and by using it, you are becoming an unsuspecting guinea pig of corporate power. A power that seeks to enslave and addict you to their product. Now, this element is not in the short story. It was an addition for the film, as Johnny discovers that he is actually carrying the cure for NAS, which was hidden by Pharmacon in order to make massive profits off of the cure. Driven by the convictions of his newfound friends and his harrowing experience, Johnny decides to become a reluctant hero of the underclass, despite longing to indulge in the pleasures of his former life as a stooge for power. In a very memorable scene, which showcases not Keanu's impressive acting ability, but definitely his ability to command a presence on screen. It's really pretty interesting. I like it.
I want room service!
I want the club sandwich. I want the cold Mexican beer. I want a $10,000 a night hooker.
Like many science fiction films of the 80s and 90s, he teams up with an underground resistance movement, the Low-Techs, a band of fringe outsiders who want to help Johnny retrieve the cure to precipitate the downfall of Pharmacon. They aren't so different from the sewer-dwelling anti-PC brigade from Demolition Man, or the benighted citizens of the Mars colony in Total Recall. And like the abdomen-bound psychic Quato, they also have a weirdly deformed talisman, a dolphin, who was rigged during wartime to have data processing abilities, due to the animal's inherent intelligence.
It's a fish.
The dwelling of the Low-Techs is a pretty incredible set, built on ropes and cantilevers, to sell the idea that this entire tree fort-type dwelling is suspended from the Brooklyn Bridge. It's a pretty striking creation from Longo and production designer Nilo Rodis Jamero, who had made a name for himself designing characters and vehicles for George Lucas on Return of the Jedi. Longo was obviously no slouch at this kind of thing either, having come from the world of high art. Johnny Mnemonic was his first and only film, and he wasn't the only fine artist of the time directing movies. Photographer Larry Clark would make his film debut with the Harmony Korine-penned Kids the same year, and installation artist Marco Brambilla would likewise direct one film as well, the 1993 action-adventure film Demolition Man. In their review of the movie during its theatrical run, Art Forum magazine gave Johnny one of its few glowing reviews, evaluating the movie as more an abstract experiment in deconstructing blockbuster filmmaking from Longo than as a commercial entertainment. And I do think for a while Longo hid behind this sort of ironic laurel as a way to shelter himself from criticism in the wake of the movie's critical and commercial failure.
I mean, I was real upfront about what I wanted to do. I mean, I wanted to make a commercial movie. I didn't want to make an art movie. You know, I wasn't interested in that. I can make art, and if I want to make an art movie, I will. I mean, the rock videos are more like art movies or something. I wanted to go at America's greatest export. You know, the action genre film. And I wanted to go at it with William's world, and I wanted to pack it with stuff that was important.
As he would later claim, I basically got thrown into the garbage heap for a while. My career tanked after that, for sure. Basically, I had to redo the 90s. I kind of missed the 90s in a weird way. It was a difficult period for me, for sure. I don't want to blame it on the movie, but the movie did set me back quite a way. The Art Forum magazine review also noted Johnny for its pastiche quality, citing references to other artists like Nam June Paik as an obvious inspiration for the Low-Tech's massive bank of television screens and monitors, as well as the work of Damien Hirst on the psychic dolphin character and his confinement, perhaps a reference to his installation, The Physical Impossibility of Death in the Mind of Someone Living, a very familiar giant preserved shark in a resin tank. The design and wardrobe for Reeves' Johnny even looks like a character straight from Longo's most popular series of works, Men in Cities. Arresting and dynamic photoreal charcoal drawings of men in suits dancing and flailing around, which Johnny resembles, especially in the moment of his exasperated monologue. What these drawings represent, and perhaps the key to understanding their immense popularity in the early 80s, is that these men depicted are the Johnny Mnemonics of their day, of the 80s. We get the feeling they could be Wall Street traders, corporate climbers, mercenary financial men at the top of the world, who yet writhe in pain, or perhaps in ecstasy. Either way, their limbs flailing, they are losing control, or never had it to begin with. They look almost like marionettes, obscured faces denoting their anonymous nature, recalling the famous quote from American Psycho, that there's an idea of Patrick Bateman. In fact, these works, so ubiquitous in the 80s, up there with someone like Patrick Nagel, are featured props in Christian Bale's apartment in the film adaptation. Variations of these suited men also appear in one of the collection of music videos that Longo directed, that being New Order's Bizarre Love Triangle, a video with its pastiche collection of rapid-fire images that could very well exist within the world of or convey what it's like to read Gibson's Neuromancer. And after all, Pastiche, I think, is a great way to describe Gibson's cyberpunk worlds, a collection of disparate cultures rammed together, and human beings who, by grafting, implanting, or absorbing technology into their bodies and minds, become a kind of hybrid human pastiche. There are excellent moments in the book Neuromancer in which its lead character, Case, cannot distinguish between reality and the world of cyberspace. Cyberpunk was obviously a left-wing reaction to the Reagan era, a critique of corporate power or deregulation in libertarian economics, which I think actually goes hand in hand with the current right-wing fear of globalization, and especially at the time in the 90s, the prevalence of Asian influence on these hypothetical future worlds. This arose no doubt from the rapid influx of Japanese consumer electronics goods, which were rapidly cornering the market, as well as prognostications from many luminaries, Michael Crichton among them, that Asia would soon overwhelm the US economically. There's a bit of a paradox at the heart of cyberpunk. It at one time presents us a world which is very scary, inhumane, and dystopian, but nevertheless, the aesthetics are badass, and have continued to intrigue today in games like Cyberpunk 2077 or films like Duncan Jones' Mute and Blade Runner 2049. Ultimately, Cyberpunk was a bit of a cope. Yes, the internet and technology will and possibly has taken over our minds and degraded our social lives, but at least there will be pockets of resistance, and the world will be incredibly stylish and cool, and you, the early adopter, the paradoxical computer technology booster, will be an outlaw, a cowboy, a punk rocker with a samurai sword and electric eyes. Only we really didn't get any of that. We ended up having the internet colonize our brains and culture while wearing athleisure clothes at the all-gray bus stop McDonald's, fingering our order against a dirty touchscreen. No graffiti, no neon, no cybernetic eye implants.
I don't think that technophobia or technophilia are appropriate responses to our situation. I think the only appropriate response is the most profound ambivalence. I think that's what we owe new technologies. We have to teach ourselves to be absolutely ambivalent about them, and mainly we have to teach ourselves to imagine their inadvertent side effects, because the inadvertent side effects are the side effects that tend to get us.
Longo was given the opportunity to revisit Johnny Mnemonic for its 25th anniversary, after much speculation that he would re-edit the film to his specifications, to nullify the studio-mandated changes. Longo instead opted simply to recolor grade the film and turn it black and white, which seems like maybe a cynical cash grab, something Longo even described as the easiest thing to do. But it actually really works. The color in the original version you find actually mute the film and dull its effects. And for as much shade as Longo has publicly thrown at the cinematographer of the film, Francois Protat, a guy who had been shooting films almost 2 a year for 2 decades and then quit entirely after Johnny Mnemonic, you can see that the intense backlighting employed during the shoot really lends the film to black and white translation. Something that makes the movie look less like a bloated derivative blockbuster and more like early, grimy cyberpunk films like Tetsuo the Iron Man, or even like German Expressionism. I've arranged some moments side by side for your inspection, and I think you can see the difference. I find Johnny Mnemonic to be a very interesting failure, but reinterpreted in this black and white version, it becomes a very different film, and I hope you watch the movie. It's actually kind of cool.
For any of our viewers who have access to internet, we invite your comments.